and welcome to this week's edition of BS with AJ. This week I'm going to show you how to make an aquarium lid for your reptile. Recently we got a new ball python and we're actually upgrading the tank size because the one we have is a little too small. We ended up getting a free tank from our in-laws. Shout out to all you guys out there. You rock! You're the greatest! Alright guys, simmer down now, it's not that good. We're going to have to upgrade the size of his tank from a 10-gallon tank to a 20-gallon tank, which is actually quite a bit bigger. It ends up being 24 inches by 12 inches or so. I'll give you the exact measurements later on. We decided to use 3/8 expanded steel for this project. It's a lot stronger than your normal terrarium lids. Those are mainly just like a screen wire or something. We want to make sure that we can put a little more weight on there so when it gets bigger it can't just push out of there. Now when you go to measure your aquarium, you want to make sure that you measure the very top of it, because it's got the black plastic all the way around, which adds just a little bit of extra. So our measurement we ended up with was 24 1/8 by 12 1/2. We want to go ahead and make sure to add 3/8 inch to both of those measurements to make sure it has enough play. You don't want it to be too tight because it could end up shattering your glass if it is. You don't want to be too loose because then it's just going to look bad. Now, original measurement that we had of our tank was 24 1/8 by 12 1/2. We want to make sure to add 3/8 inch to both of those measurements to have enough play so that way it's not too tight on your glass. And once you add that, I ended up with 24 1/2 by 12 7/8. Well, we're just going to go ahead and round that up to 13 just to make it easy. Now that you're done doing that part, you're going to have to add for your side that comes down. We're going to do 3/4 inch. And you're going to have to add this to both sides. So it's actually going to be 1.5 inches added to both of those measurements. So instead of 24 1/8, what we originally started with, it's going to be 26. And instead of 12 1/2, it's going to be 14 1/2. Now that you got your piece cut out, you're going to have to go around each corner and cut out a square. Because we're doing 3/4 inch of a lip all the way around, we're going to have to cut out 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch square so when we fold it up it's all flush. Now that you got all your corners cut out, what you're going to want to do is go ahead and mark your 3/4 inch line on each side because that's where your bend mark's going to be. You want to make sure it's good and straight. Now I'm going to use a handbrake to break all this up because I have access to it. Not everybody does. However, everybody has access to a pair of hand tongs, which you can get at any local hardware store for about 30 bucks or so. All we're going to do is line up our brake with our black line that we just put all the way across, all the way down through here. We're going to load it in just like this, clamp it down. And we'll bend it up 90 degrees. Alright, now that you got it all bent up, you could go with this, but for safety reasons, these edges here, they're pretty sharp, and you don't really want to cut yourself where you're trying to handle a snake or whatever you're trying to mess with. So what we're going to do is go ahead and make some flashing to go over this. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get our measurements here, which ends up being 24 3/4 by 13 even. Alright, we got our metal now that we're going to use. We're going to go ahead and make a mark at 1 3/4, 1.5 inches, 3/4 inches, and then 1/4 inch. I'll explain here in a few minutes. Alright, now you're going to go ahead and cut the very first line you put, which is going to be 1 3/4 inches. You're going to cut that whole strip down. Alright, now all we got to do is cut this strip down to the lengths we need and cut some more if we need to. Alright, now that you got all your pieces cut, all these lines that you marked a while ago, basically what you're going to end up doing is you're going to have a 1/4 inch up top, a 1/4 inch down here on the bottom. You're going to bend it over 180 degrees. That's what you call a hem. And then right here in the middle is your actual bend mark that you're going to make. You're going to go ahead and bend that 180 degrees as well, but you want to get it kind of tight, but you don't want it so tight that you're not going to be able to work it on in a minute. Alright, now that you got all those bent up, what they end up looking like is this. You have a 1/2 inch on the inside and the 3/4 inch on the outside. So it's basically, this is the solid side is going to be facing outside. Alright, now that you got it all finished up, here's your final product. You can tighten it up as much as you need to with your pliers. If it's not tight enough to stay, you can pop rivet it if you need to. This in here is pretty tight, so I'm just going to let it go. If you wanted to paint it, the first thing you'd want to do is kind of scuff it up with a scuff pad of some sort and put a self-etching primer down to make sure it adheres to the raw metal like this. Then you want to put a primer coat on it and use a high temp paint. I'd prefer black, but that's up to you. Alright, well, we just got done painting it with a high temp paint, so that way it doesn't burn off whenever we put the heat lamp on it. And you see what it looks like after you're finished. Right, here's the sides. This is how it looks on the profile of it. There's no sharp edges because we made the flashing on there. Should be good to go. Hope you enjoyed this week's project. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any good ideas for other projects that you'd like to see, leave me a comment and I'll get to it. Consider supporting us on Patreon so we can do bigger and better projects. Like, share, and subscribe, man. Come on back, baby.